So the best understanding of this, I mean, this is, I think Nassim Taleb said that Dan Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he actually said, this is a book that's on the level of Adam Smith's Theory of Moral Sentiments, or I think he said Freud's work. I mean, he's very, very serious. This is a Nobel Prize winning economist. This book, you know, Taleb said it probably ought to win a Pulitzer Prize. I think he's probably right. It didn't end up winning the Pulitzer, but it's a really, really good book. It's probably the best book on this problem that is out there today. Kahneman basically innovated, along with his colleague Amos Tversky, who's now dead, but back in the 70s, they innovated all of this stuff about cognitive bias and thinking and how to do it. Now, Kahneman in this book presents what he calls the two systems model. Okay, and this is basically what I'm talking about with the two ways that you can forget about the auto-regulation of the brain. That's primarily what the brain's for. Once you start thinking, there's really two systems, he says, that you can think through. There's an intuitive automatic system, what he calls system one. This is the habits of thought. Right? This is the automatic processing of information in a way that makes sense, that you've done before, that you understand, that you can get through very, very easily. Now, this can be both expert or just purely heuristic based. So experts, as you know, famous story about chess players. You ask a master chess player to assess the moves on a board. You can pull a board out. It's got all the chess pieces put into different places, and you say, okay, take a look. You give them like 5 seconds, boom, you take the board away, and they can tell you basically how the game is going to go. They're experts. They can see very quickly and assess the situation, think 7 moves ahead or whatever it is, and figure out how to play that game. You show it to an amateur or somebody who barely has played chess in years like me, and I'm going to say, there's some pieces on the board, right? So I might have a heuristic. I might be able to just see, yeah, it looks like I should move my knight. No better reason than I think I should. System two, the other kind of thinking that Kahneman talks about, is deliberative, effortful. It's the kind of thinking when you think about actual hard focus. Bringing your mind into a state of conscious focus on problem solving. Okay? Now, the key here that Kahneman points out, and I think that is really at the root of his book, is that you have to know when to use which. You cannot just say, oh, I'm going to be perfectly rational. I'm just going to use system two all the time. I'm going to deliberate with the same conscious effort about whether to order the steak or the chicken as I do about whether to engage in a whole lifelong process of choosing this career or that career. You cannot do that. You have to develop these kinds of systems and be very confident about these systems. So the question is, if you have this automatic system where your brain has this intuitive sense where you just give answers, how do you make sure that you're not short-circuiting yourself? Well, the answer is, as I said, knowing which is which. So let's take an example from Kahneman's book. So if I select at random from a representative sample of Americans a man to describe his neighbor, and the man describes his neighbor, Steve is very shy and withdrawn, invariably helpful, but with little interest in people or the world of reality. He's a meek and tidy soul. He has a need for order and structure, and he has a passion for detail. Okay? Question is Steve more likely a farmer or a librarian? Okay? Think about that for a second. Guess what the answer is. Some of you, I mean, at least if Kahneman's right, a lot of you are thinking, oh, that sounds like a librarian. But guess what? Male farmers outnumber male librarians in the United States by 20 to 1. You'd be very poorly advised to judge just because of these characteristics that this guy is more likely a librarian than a farmer. Far more likely, even if you don't know anything about him, is Steve more likely a farmer or a librarian? Well, he's a guy, 20 times more guys doing farming than librarian work, more likely 20 to 1 that he's a librarian. This is what he calls the representativeness bias, or the simplifying heuristic. If you tend to simplify things into categories that give you those automatic answers, you're going to often be misled by your thinking. You're going to easily be seduced into that process of identifying what you already know in a way that conforms to a certain belief of what you think is representative. Let's take another example. This one's a fun one.
Convention returning speaker from Austin, Texas, 2012. And actually, Anthony Johnson, the CEO of the 21 Convention, said it's one of his favorite speeches, the Austin, Texas one. And let's hope this one is too. Eric Daniels, let's do it.
All right. Thanks. All right, guys. Hopefully you're fully caffeinated, ready to go. The two systems model. Okay, and this is basically what I'm talking about with the two ways that you can forget about the auto-regulation of the brain. That's primarily what the brain's for. Once you start thinking, there's really two systems, he says, that you can think incredibly distorting. So one of these is the illusion of precision. Had this result, and therefore it's going to apply to this group. Right? You see this all the time, and not the least of which is mice or lab rats or whatever comparing to humans, but even different groups of humans with different ages, different profiles, etc. Businesses to great businesses published this book, claimed that he understood everything that the CEOs and leadership teams did to make them great, published the book, made lots of money, and guess what?